What's a stock buyback and why do companies do it and why does it push the price of stocks up?
Okay, stock buyback. So, for example, Apple announced, $110 billion stock buyback, and Google, I think, was 70 billion, I believe, was their stock buyback announcement. They're kind of controversial, partly because that's money that these companies have, and you got to say to yourself, okay, if I have $110 billion,
Hmm.
why am I not creating the next great thing,
Yeah,
right? The next iPhone, or whatever that might be, right? I think the VR goggles, I keep reading headlines saying they're not selling that great, they're that kind of stuff.
it's pretty hard at 3,500 a pop.
Yeah, that could be a problem. uh, and so, the reason is because they can make more money, right, for their shareholders by buying back the stock, in their opinion, than they can in inventing something new. Does that make sense? So all of these things are kind of a financial engineering. They're taking a look at what's going on. They say, okay, we've got this 110 billion. Where's the best place for us to put it?
Yep.
And they keep coming back to buy more stock. It's a little concerning, right? I mean, Google, it just shows, because the path of a company is this kind of slow moving thing when it's new, and then it hits this high growth period, right? And it goes straight up. And then it hits maturity where it kind of flattens off in
Yeah.
terms of its growth, right? That's the normal little S curve thing we all saw in finance school. And those companies are kind of hitting that maturity level. You don't really want to think that. You'd love to see Google and Apple, for example, coming up with new products and new things. But what happens is when they buy back shares, they're shrinking the number of shares available.
Yeah, Apple's been doing this for a number of
Oh
years.
yeah, for a long time.
They started 2008. Their previous record was 2018 with 100 million, but
Right.
they also did 75 billion in 2019, 50 in 2020,
Yeah.
90 21, and so they've been doing it basically every year.
Yeah, exactly. And again, shows and how many new products have we seen in that time frame?
Yeah.
They dropped the car. We saw these VR goggles. I think that's the only. I mean, there's been improvements
Oh
on
yeah.
their existing pieces, but they're no longer that earth-shattering. Coming up with things that people, the iPhone, that they did. The smartphone really is incredible. They don't have Steve Jobs anymore, and so that's part of the problem, obviously. But um, when you do the numbers, if you reduce the number of shares, right, and the demand, if it just happens to stay the same, you would start to see an increase in price, right?
Hmm.
And if you have the same amount of earnings and you're dividing it by less shares because you purchased shares and took them off the market, your earnings per share is also going up.
So you're fixing your financial ratios in a sense.
Yes, and this is financial engineering, pure and simple. They can, the thing that I think, I have a finance degree, and one of the things that always kind of struck me about this was that over and over and over again in the classes, in the textbooks, and what have you, the job of the CEO and the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, was to increase the price per share. Their job was to serve the shareholders.
Hmm.
Period. Well, there's some huge problems with that because, theoretically, I might be able to increase the price per share by dumping toxic chemicals into a river instead of properly paying to have them disposed or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And so that's one of the problems. All of these CEOs and CFOs that are coming out of these business schools and these finance degree schools are learning, something that is probably pretty controversial. But this financial engineering that goes around share buybacks has to do with this. It is you're looking to increase the price of the share, period.
Hmm.
And so if I have $110 billion, I can very much so figure out what that means and how much I'm going to be increasing the share price. There's market forces, the market falls apart, there's all kinds of things that can happen because it's kind of like a tide, with boats going up and
Yeah.
down. And you could be buying back shares and the price is dropping because the whole market's hitting the skids.
Hmm.
Eventually, when the market comes around, theoretically, you could come back even faster with less shares. But so you're just reducing the number of shares that you have on hand, and it'll increase the potentially the price and increase the earnings per share. So um, I don't know what to think about it. I'd much rather see companies coming up with new products, especially companies I really like, they think can do some fantastic things. It would have been really interesting to see the Apple car, to be honest. It would have been kind of fascinating,
Hmm.
whatever it would have been. I'd rather see them spending that money there as a shareholder, than having them buy back shares, but the market likes it because it knows what's happening there too. And
Yeah.
Wall Street is kind of short term based, quarter by quarter, to be honest, more so than what the future might happen. And I think that's one of the problems. Like Meta's been having. Zuckerberg keeps talking about these longer term dreams of what he sees happening.
Yeah, in the 5-year plan or a 10-year plan.
Yeah, and because he's the visionary. It's his job, right? When he starts talking about the metaverse, they hammer his stock,
Yeah.
because they want to know about next quarter more than anything. So it's kind of interesting, but that's what buybacks are and how they work.